Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. Helen Keller. Life is a succession of lessons which must be lived to be understood. Helen Keller. The most pathetic person in the world is someone who has sight but no vision. Helen Keller. Every child has a right to be well born, well nurtured, and well taught, and only the freedom of woman can guarantee him this right. Helen Keller. To keep our faces toward change, and behave like free spirits in the presence of fate, is strength undefeatable. Helen Keller. The place between your comfort zone and your dream is where life takes place. Helen Keller. When one door of happiness closes, another opens, but often we look so long at the closed door that we do not see the one which has been opened for us. Helen Keller. While they were saying among themselves it cannot be done, it was done. Helen Keller. Face your deficiencies and acknowledge them, but do not let them master you. Let them teach you patience, sweetness, insight. True education combines intellect, beauty, goodness, and the greatest of these is goodness. When we do the best that we can, we never know what miracle is wrought in our life, or in the life of another. Helen Keller. All that we love deeply becomes a part of us. Helen Keller. Faith is the strength by which a shattered world shall emerge into the light. Helen Keller. No pessimist ever discovered the secret of the stars, or sailed to an uncharted land, or opened a new doorway for the human spirit. Helen Keller. A bend in the road is not the end of the road, unless you fail to make the turn. Helen Keller. Education should train the child to use his brains, to make for himself a place in the world and maintain his rights even when it seems that society would shove him into the scrap heap. Helen Keller. Great poetry needs no interpreter other than a responsive heart. Helen Keller. Health in all lands is among the indispensable guarantees of human progress. Helen Keller. Walking with a friend in the dark is better than walking alone in the light. Helen Keller. You don't love someone for their looks, or their clothes, or for their fancy car, but because they sing a song only you can hear. Helen Keller. I do not want the peace which passeth understanding, I want the understanding which bringeth peace. Helen Keller. But what I consider my crown of success is the happiness and pleasure that my victory has brought to dear teacher. Indeed, the success is hers more than mine, for she is my constant inspiration. Helen Keller. True happiness is not attained through self-gratification, but through fidelity to a worthy purpose. Helen Keller. The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched, they must be felt with the heart. Helen Keller. Everything has its wonders, even darkness, and silence, and I learn, whatever state I may be in, therein to be content. Helen Keller. I am thankful that in a troubled world no calamity can prevent the return of spring. Helen Keller. I rejoice to live in such a splendidly disturbing time. Helen Keller. Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. Helen Keller. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still, I can do something, and because I cannot do everything I will not refuse to do the something that I can do. Helen Keller. What I am looking for is not out there, it is in me. Helen Keller. Believe, when you are most unhappy, that there is something for you to do in the world. So long as you can sweeten another's pain, life is not in vain. Helen Keller. Meanwhile the desire to express myself grew. The few signs I used became less and less adequate, and my failures to make myself understood were invariably followed by outbursts of passion. Helen Keller. Toleration is the greatest gift of the mind, it requires the same effort of the brain that it takes to balance oneself on a bicycle. Helen Keller. People do not like to think. If one thinks, one must reach conclusions. Conclusions are not always pleasant. Helen Keller. Never bend your head, hold it high, look the world straight in the eye. Helen Keller. We are never really happy until we try to brighten the lives of others. Helen Keller. The true test of a character is to face hard conditions with the determination to make them better. Helen Keller. Each day comes to me with both hands full of possibilities. Helen Keller. I long to accomplish a great and noble task, but it is my chief duty to accomplish small tasks as if they were great and noble. Helen Keller. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. Helen Keller. It all comes to this: the simplest way to be happy is to do good. Helen Keller. Words are never warm and tender enough to express one's appreciation of a great kindness. Helen Keller. Many persons have a wrong idea of what constitutes true happiness. It is not attained through self-gratification but through fidelity to a worthy purpose. Helen Keller.